You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
All right, good evening. My name is Peter Basserman. I'm chairman of Branford, Town of Branford Inland Wetland Commission. I'll now open the regular commission meeting of July 10th, 2025. It is 7 o'clock. This evening's meeting will be conducted as a virtual meeting using the Zoom software conference platform. It is being held in accordance with Connecticut's Public Act 22-3 and the town of Branford's Inland Wetland and Water Courses regulations. Documents referenced during the meeting are available at the town hall or on the agency's website. Final agenda for tonight's meeting was filed on July 8th and is posted on the town's website. I believe there are some changes to that agenda. Does staff want to inform us what those changes are?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. There's been a request to table item 175 Cherry Hill Road. Is anyone here present for 175 Cherry Hill Road, item 5A on the agenda? Doesn't seem so. So I would recommend tabling that item to the July 24th meeting.
Is that the only change, Jamie?
Yes.
And we don't need a formal motion and vote to make that change. Thank you. BCTV will be recording tonight's meeting. Thankful for their time and effort to provide the service to the community. For those speaking at this evening's proceeding, please be conscious of positioning your face so that your face is visible when recording. Also, to ensure a complete and accurate record for the discussions this evening, each time a statement is made, party must announce his or her name and title before articulating any comment. This applies to any party wishing to participate. You can use the raise your hand feature, and staff and I will do our best to make sure that you're recognized. Any changes to the procedures regarding tonight's proceeding, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. No changes.
For the record, I was absent at the previous meeting of the commission on June 26th. I have listened to the recording of that meeting and reviewed the material that was discussed. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Commissioner Boda for acting chair at that meeting. I'll now take the roll call. Commissioner Papatonis.
Commissioner Papatonis present.
Commissioner Gopowski.
Commissioner Gopowski present.
Commissioner Begerman.
Commissioner Begerman here, present.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda present.
Okay, we have 5 commissioners present, therefore we have a quorum and we'll proceed. Is there any commissioner that needs to recuse themselves for any of the items on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, we'll take the first order of business, the minutes of approval from our June 26th, 2025 regular meeting.
This is Commissioner Boda. I just for the item, he's incorrect, 250501, 329 East Main Street. About 5 lines from the bottom of the page, there's a reference to as millings leach toxins that can enter the wetland. And Katie, I'm wondering if you can go back and clarify, instead of the use of toxins, we were discussing heavy metals and PAHs. And so I think that and other types of pollutants that affect water chemistry. So, given the nature of the conversation, I think it would be better to have the record reflect a little bit more detail.
Absolutely, I will make those changes and bring it back to the commission.
Yeah.
We will table the minutes for June 26, 2025 until our July 20, what's today, the 10th, 24th meeting? Am I right on that, Jamie?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Bagman. Before we go on, the enforcement for 250202, I mean, cease and correct, that's going to be tabled to the 24th. I'm assuming, Jamie, that you're getting reports and there's nothing currently that's a problem, otherwise it wouldn't be tabled. And
Let's hop on that when we get to where it would be on the agenda. Let's finish the. Were we done with the minutes?
We're done with the minutes.
Okay. Sorry, I thought that you were talking about the minutes still.
no.
So we have no applications for review, so we have item 5, enforcement. Cease and correct 250502, 175 Cherry Hill Road.
I'll just clarify
Boozy
real
Road.
quick. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. So I was out at the site earlier this week. I have been in communications with the individuals involved. There was a request to continue the item because there's a planning and zoning meeting this evening as well, and one party had to attend both meetings. So given that I didn't see anything that would change in regards to concerns or impacts between now and the next meeting, I thought it was fair to comply with the request.
This is Commissioner Rasmussen. Am I right, Jamie? You visited the site recently and didn't see anything that prompted action at this point?
Correct. Beyond updates.
Okay. Cease and correct 250501, 329 East Main Street, failure of erosion and sedimentation control measures in association with the development of the site. And this is a continuation of the show cause hearing. Jamie, do we have a number of reports I think we've received since the last meeting regarding this item?
Jamie Frederick and Wetland Agent, we have received an inspection report, and we have also received a letter and some corresponding supplemental materials in regards to the millings that were discussed at the last meeting. I believe we have the project engineer and an LEP present to kind of go over that response.
We'll turn it over to you, Mr. Schmitz, at this point.
Sure. Hi, good evening. My name is John Schmitz. I'm a civil engineer with BO Companies, 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut, representing the applicant. We have been continuing our weekly erosion control inspections and inspecting also after rainfall events. But I think tonight we're here to talk about follow up on where we were a couple of weeks ago with regards to the millings pile and address some of the questions that were raised at the last meeting. I know that Jamie Frederick had put together a list of items, and we did provide a letter just yesterday kind of responding to those items one at a time, outlining where we stood with those with the items. I won't go through them in particular, but I'll just do a couple of things. And by the way, with me tonight is Joy Kloss, who is a licensed environmental professional working in our Meriden office at BL. So we talked internally, went through the discussion about the millings. We also reached out to the contractor Quality Construction, and was determined that the pile is reclaimed material, meaning that it's combination of the millings as well as the processed aggregate, the stone base. So the machines were used to reclaim that material, and it's piled up on the site currently. So the material is going to be kept until it's needed to be reused later on in the construction phases as we get into paving. So it will be replaced In the areas where we'll be paving again, all the gravel, all the millings that are in there will be spread around the site into the parking areas, and then new pavement will be placed on top of it. I don't have a schedule yet for what that time frame is. It'll be, I would say, sometime next year. I think late next year. But that's the plan at this point. There was discussion also about testing the pile, and it was determined that we BL and the applicant discussed that there wasn't the idea of testing was, it was basically that if we test the pile, we're basically going to come up with what we expect to find. It is pavement milling, so there would be heavy metals in it. There would be pHs in it, and so the testing wouldn't provide us with any information that we don't already know. And to add more uncertainty to it, the parking lot's been there for over 30 years, and so some of the material may have already leached into the underground soil, and we don't have any background testing to know what the background limits are. So there'd be nothing to compare. There's no before and after to test to make a comparison in the testing to. So I just kind of wanted to explain where we came from that, and then I'll just let Joy just quickly give a brief outline of what we talked about, but it's just more along the lines of DEP's clarification of how they look at the material. And I did submit with the letter a couple of background forms from DEP, as well as DEP's memo from going back to 2006, where they highlight the difference between, or how they consider pavement millings in their definition of solid waste and how it complies. So, Joy, you're the professional. I'll let you talk a bit about that.
Yes, so I am Joy Kloss. I am a licensed environmental professional out of our Marion office, as Sean had said. And what John's referring to is typically when sites are within a program, such as like the Transfer Act, or if there's some sort of order on the site, you need to remediate the site in accordance with the remediation standard regulations. And there are there's certain language in those regulations that exempt the remediation of pHs, metals, any TPH that are associated with a parking lot or parking area. And it exempts it from meeting the direct exposure criteria, in addition to meeting the pollutant mobility criteria as well. So I know the site is not in a program, but this is something that DEP does recognize as something that, our normal anthropogenic, nature of a parking lot is going to cause pHs, metals, and ETPH to be present in that area. So that's kind of where we're kind of getting at, is that this material can be reused. It's going to be a parking lot. It's been a parking lot for 30 years. I don't think it's adding any additional contamination to that area if it remains a parking lot.
This Commissioner Boder, I don't think that there was a question about or a request to remediate the lot. That wasn't really the discussion, or not my interpretation of the discussion, but rather a question of how those asphalt millings were going to be used in the next steps, such that they do not continue to act and provide leachate to groundwater and nearby wetlands and water courses. Because so you understand the difference?
Yeah, no, I do. So I think John had kind of mentioned a little bit of this, touched on this before, that it's not all asphalt millings within that pile. There's also sub-base material, so it's a combination of the two. And that's going to happen is that's going to be repurposed as sub-base material, and new asphalt is going to go over top of it, which will essentially environmentally isolate any material within the sub-base below. So therefore, it wouldn't be continuing to leach into the groundwater.
This is Commissioner Bowe. So you're talking about repurposing it and essentially capping it with additional pavement. So can you, would you clarify a little bit, or Mr. Schmidt can clarify, when you say repurposed, can you describe for us, what does that repurposing look like?
So to reuse the material, there would be bulldozers, other types of equipment that would spread that material out. Currently, again, it's in a pile. So it would be spread out in a layer along in the areas where the new pavement would be placed. Off the top of my head, it's either 8 inches or 12 inches thick, a base layer. And then there would be approximately 3 inches of new bituminous pavement on top of that. And so the material is placed with usually typically a bulldozer. It's then compacted with rollers, vibratory rollers to compact it in place, and then it would be then paving is placed on top of that base.
For clarity purposes, I believe it was mentioned by Ms. Claus or John. I can't remember whether you mentioned it. Whether there's 2 different types of materials in the stockpiles. There's the millings, and then there's some subsurface material. Is that commingled, or are there 2 separate piles?
No, it's one pile. So as it was removed, again, John Schmitz, the material was removed in one manner. So as it's bulldozed up and removed and milled, the machine is grinding it and combining it into one mixture, and then it's placed into the pile. So it's all mixed together.
And the nature of the material, other than the millings, is what?
Stone. Processed aggregate is a stone product.
And there's no way in the removal that it can be separated?
I'm not aware of a process. I mean, I suppose there would have to be some kind of like a sieve. Typically, we if you're trying to separate materials, you have to put it through almost like a giant strainer. They do it. It would be very time consuming to try to do that.
Right. Yeah. Hi, Joy Cost again. Right. It would be kind of hard to separate. You kind of like would be peeling it back and segregating at the same time. That's why I typically refer to like even the pavement and the sub base as a whole pavement structure. It's not just the pavement that it's the entire structure that is getting reclaimed.
As a kind of a different question, Mr. Bassman, if the material that was removed was sent off-site for some other purpose, some other project, and new material brought in, do we reduce the amount of PAHs and other chemicals by the fact that it's new bituminous surface as opposed to reuse?
I mean, it's going to be sealed with concrete, with asphalt, whatever's below it. So in my mind, I don't think it's going to, if the rainwater is going to be diverted, it's not going to be leaching through pavement, so I think it's going to be environmentally isolated. I've seen it done on a lot of sites, and that seems to be a very standard procedure to reuse the material. And in some cases, like if there's, you didn't have the opportunity to reuse it on a site, it's typically taken and reused or repurposed in that way as well, or even put back in to make new asphalt sometimes.
In my listening to the recording, to me it was open ended. I didn't hear closure on it. Given the fact that the pile is going to be there for some time before it's reclaimed, there was an issue brought up about a double row of erosion controls. And is that something that is going to happen, or is that still to be determined?
I think, again, John Schmitz, I haven't been out to the site this week, and I believe we had someone out there today. I'm not sure if the double row has been installed. I think we also did commit that we'd be able to place a plastic sheet, some type of sheeting over the pile to keep rainwater off of it until such time that we would reuse the material.
So you agree to both of those?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Jamie Frederick and wetland agent. So I was just going to say, I think at the last meeting, the concern was in part, how is it going to be used on site? And then the other part was, until it's reused on site, how is it going to be managed so that it's not causing an issue? So I was out on site on the 7th, which was Monday. There was not the double row of silt fence at that time. In fact, the pile looked like it had been kind of modified since the last time I was out there. So I think if we can kind of get a resolution on what the commission's looking for and a direction for the crew on site to address, that would be good.
This is Commissioner Gulkowski, and maybe I'm off base, and I hope somebody can correct me. But when you're reusing the material that you agree is, it's got some stuff in it, and you're packing it down with the rollers and everything like that, you're packing the contaminants that are already in that soil on the bottom layer. So that contamination is already leaching through. And then when you compact it with the pavement or concrete, whatever pavement, probably tar, you're pressing it down. So whatever contaminants are in that soil are going to leach right through. And that's my concern at this stage of the game.
Did Mr. Schmitz or Ms. Collins want to speak to that? There was another question that yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is Joy Kloss again. So I guess I think you need to take a step back and kind of get an understanding of what actually, when you make a parking lot, what you're putting down. You're putting down, it has pHs in it. It has ETPH. It's not like there's an industrial activity that's like causing the contamination. It's the nature of putting together a parking lot and building a parking lot. These are the materials that are used, and this is what's in the materials. So every parking lot has these constituents, and if you went around a parking lot, there could be runoff from a parking lot that ran over a paved surface that could leach into the soil nearby. That's why the Connecticut DEP recognizes this and has these conditional exemptions just in the RSRs. That's why I was kind of saying that as an example.
And this is Commissioner Boda. I think just to Commissioner Gulkowski's question, the compression is not from above, is not the thing that is going to contribute to leaching. It is rainfall passing through. So if you imagine those millings and other things as coffee grounds, when it rains, that coffee is, you get that dark color, that's going to be your leachate. But if you were to put a plastic cover over your coffee filter, that water's going to run off. It's not going to run through the coffee grounds, and we're not going to have the leachate pollution. My wondering is based on the action and the of how the lot was cleared initially, and I mean, I think that it is preferable to recycle and reintegrate millings as opposed to produce more and producing, using those hydrocarbons, adding more to the system. I mean, I think repurposing them is fine. My concern is the process itself and the potential for the entire site to have this 8 to 12 inch thick repurposed material that I'm not quite sure if it's is it physically a mixture? I'm not thinking that it's chemically a mixture. I'm thinking you still have these smaller milling components that are capable of leaching prior to the new layer of bituminous, 3-inch bituminous pavement that is then passed over, acting as a cap. And so I think at this point, given this description, what I would want to know is how do we, or if the permit holder can provide I don't want to use the word, I can't think of a different word other than a phased plan, but a timed out plan so that the entire site is not 8 to 12 inches thick. And now for some undetermined amount of time where rain events are happening and we're continuing to leach those heavy metals and the pHs. And instead, what it should look like which is I think how we got here, is things were supposed to be done in smaller sections, or at least that was our understanding. And then you can pave those pieces so that we didn't have all of that exposed millings that are just leaching into our nearby waterways.
This is John Schmidt. You certainly talk to the contractor and try to come up with a plan or a schedule for when they propose to to place material and what sections it will go into. I mean, typically once they put down material, whether it's gravel or this reclaimed material, and then they roll it, they pave it relatively quickly. They don't, because you don't want to leave the material and have trucks or anybody else driving over it that could potentially impact the material. You want to pave it, or at least put down a binder course, meaning that there's usually 2 layers of pavement that go down. The binder would be the first layer, and then sometimes they'll come back at a later date and do the final wearing course. But we certainly ask if they can come up with some type of a schedule for not only when it will be replaced, but what their methodology would be to which section would go first or second.
I think this is Commissioner Bowe. I think that would be helpful, and oversight of then that plan will be important, because we're here because things were not done as we thought, according to the original plan. So I would like to avoid continuing to come back over things that sound like normal practice from an engineering standpoint, and then in practice on the ground something else happens and we end up with additional contaminations.
Commissioner Bassman, is there a plan to get a baseline of what the chemical component of the wetland is today, and be part of the monitoring plan for this site?
So sorry, Joy Kloss again. I don't know of any sampling plan that has been put together for testing the wetland area now, as opposed to after the parking lot is complete.
My concern is, we have a very large parking area that's going to be done. We have a very large pile of material that is going to be repurposed, reclaimed, however you want to call it. And I guess as a practice, is in what we're talking about, leaving that material in place, admittedly incorporating new material as well. But the long-term impact on the wetland is what the concern is. How much leachate really gets its way into the wetland given this process. And so to the extent that there's a baseline that we can establish today before laying all that material out, and then just like a planting plan, monitor that to determine it's a learning experience clearly for us, and I would think it would be a learning experience for you folk as well when parking lots are going to be put in place close to a wetland.
Okay. So sampling a baseline now is definitely, it's something that can be done. I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but the regulations are changing as of March of 2026. We're moving away from a program based on how you clean up sites to more of a release-based program. And so if we test the material now and find pHs or above the RSRs or anything like that, then um, that will stay in the file cabinet and won't do anything. If we test it after March of 2026 and we find something, that's going to be reported to the state of Connecticut, even if the levels are the same as what they were at the baseline. I'm saying it could already be present there. I'm giving fair warning there.
I understand, but
Yeah,
at least we would know what's there
sure.
and what the change is, if any, over time.
It would definitely tell you that. Yes. Agreed.
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. My understanding would be that in the point of the testing would be to see if it's increasing while the millings are on site, not post pavement, because I mean paving was part of the project, and I'm sure probably fresh pavement has higher levels of these materials than, and at least some of them than older material would have. So is the concern to make sure that the current condition isn't worsening the impact of these materials to the wetland? Like you want it. So one of the things we had talked about when Smith's contacted me earlier is that there's no baseline number from before the parking lot was pulled up. So it kind of really restricts what the reporting will tell us. So I guess I just want to make sure that the end goal is clear. The commission's requesting reporting.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Even if they get a count tomorrow, do a test tomorrow, at least we have something to base it on. That as time progresses with this project, if there's another test 45 days from now and it worsens or gets or improves, at least we know that it's being monitored. I think that would be a comfort level for me.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. It would give us a relative baseline. It's not really truly a baseline because it's not from prior to activity. One question I guess I would have for the LEP is if you're going to be testing for these materials, and say we have a stretch of no rain and then a stretch of a downpour, is that likely to influence the sample that you would get at the outfalls?
I'll ask the
In my
state.
opinion, no. In my opinion, I don't think there's going to be that much that's going to run off the pile that's going to get into the outfall and contaminate the wetland. I think what we're looking at right now is that probably since it's been a parking lot, and I have to look a little bit more at the drainage on this project. But if it was a parking lot for 30 years and water was collected from this parking lot and discharged through that area into the wetland, then pHs are there and they're present. Okay. We're gonna test the soil. If I'm just saying, if we were to test the soil now and test the soil later, we're gonna see pHs now. We're gonna see pHs later. I don't think there's gonna be that much of a variability like before and after. And also considering you're not like ever gonna be able to get the same exact soil sample, and there's a lot of variability to sampling soil. As much as you can mix it around, if there's going to be a little bit of variability there, and like I said, there probably could be pHs to start with.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I guess that's kind of the point I'm trying to get at is we also don't know what an expected variability in a sample would be. So if it changes, how do we know what's driving that?
Right, because it's
Is
going
it
to
actually
change.
more delivery of the material, or is there some other characteristic? I mean, you never start a study halfway through. I'm not saying that we shouldn't necessarily, but I'm just saying calling something now baseline, it is only baseline in the sense that it's the first sample that will be taken.
Yeah, joy calls again, and also like the baseline sample would be prior to a parking lot being present at the site. That's would be more of I feel like a baseline than now.
This is Commissioner Bassman. So what I'm hearing is the horse is already out of the barn.
But I don't think it's I don't think it's the pile that contributed to anything that was there. I think it's just the nature of the parking lot. Yeah.
And I guess if I confused everybody and maybe myself, I was thinking of this not so much as the pile, as the end product of the parking lot. And 5-year monitoring of whatever rainwater leaches out into the wetland and what the difference might be in toxicity in the wetlands. So I wasn't so much concerned about the pile because my understanding is we're going to do a double row of erosion controls and hopefully that contains anything from the pile. But what I'm hearing is that given the fact that we didn't take the sample prior to any of the work commencing, that the relative value of trying to monitor this over time is going to be debatable no matter what the results are.
Jamie Frederick and Wetland. I don't know that testing the outfall for these materials post paving and to try and assess the impact of the paving is necessarily fair to the applicant, because the commission did approve a site plan with pavement, and as has been presented earlier, these materials are in pavement. So I think the concern that the commission has before them tonight is in regards to the current site condition, the current material on site, and whether or not it's causing an undue impact to the wetland watercourse areas. So to backtrack, we've talked about double ringing the pile with silt fence and covering it so that way stormwater or rainfall isn't interacting with the pile. And I don't disagree. I've seen the pile. It is a mixture. It's not just millings. It's millings and stone. I think that's part of why it didn't jump out at me at first what the pile really was, even though it's pretty plain. I think it's part of redevelopment of a developed site. And I think the measures of covering it should help with any migration that might occur.
Mr. Bassman, thank you for the discussion and we draw the request.
This is Commissioner Boda. So if I can just summarize where I think, because I think Jamie, I appreciate your summary and bringing us back to the pile itself. I think that there's two big things that we're looking for from the permit holder. One is the sediment erosion control, so the double ring of the double silt fence rather around the stockpile area, as well as the cover for that pile, which because the silt fence, and for new commissioners, the silt fence will stop the physical stuff from washing away from the pile, versus the cover, which would prevent rainfall from infiltrating through the pile and contributing leachate. So those are two different components that we're thinking about. And then the third thing is, Mr. Shutt, we're going to go back and talk with the contractor about a plan, a sequence, or time frame for the initial layering versus the final cap. Because I do think once the site is capped and those millings are integrated, it's like any other parking lot, and then we have the other controls and mitigation and all that the other things that we do to protect the wetland watercourse. And so I think that's, from my perspective, those are the most pressing issues, is preventing what is on the site from causing any additional direct harm.
This is Josh Smith. Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with those three items.
Yeah, Joy Claus, I'm also in agreement. Those three are definitely things that have been brought up and I feel like should be done.
This is Commissioner Bagman. In terms of piles of those millings, are there best management practices for that you know of?
Well, covering the pile and sedimentation and erosion controls would be best management practices.
Thanks.
So yeah, preventing exposure from stormwater.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Didn't know if there were any others.
This is Commissioner Gokowski. Mr. Schmidt, can you give us an idea of when the pile will be covered and the double settlement controls around the pile be installed? Do you have any idea, or has that been discussed with the contractor yet?
The contractor received the same emails that I received from Jamie Frederick, requesting, I think a week ago or so, the email came out that that take place. It hasn't happened yet. As the engineer, I can certainly, after tomorrow, we'll find out. But I can't commit to if he's going to do it tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. I'll certainly let them know that it needs to be done. I'll let the owner know as well.
I know since our last meeting that fence went up awful quick. So.
Well, I think the fence you're referring to is a security fence, and I think if you've been by the site, one of the buildings is out of the ground now. There's an elevator tower being constructed, so it's more of a safety.
That's been working. No, and I understand that, but after our last meeting, when we had the major discussion, that fence went up with the nice green area to block what's going on inside the construction site. That's all. I just want to make sure that things are working. We wouldn't be in this situation right now if everything was done the way it was supposed to be done in the first place. That's all I'm saying. We don't like to have these kind of discussions.
Jamie Frederick, agent, would it be reasonable to expect the silt fence and covering the stockpile to be done by, let's say, the 22nd? Gives them enough time for me to inspect it before next meeting. And I'm not sure how hard it is to get sheet plastic that large.
Right. I'm sure and John Schmitz, I'm sure the contractor has a stockpile of silt fence, whether on site or in his construction yard. So the silt fence, I think, could be done relatively quickly. Joy probably answered the question about plastic. I'm not sure how readily available that is, or needs to be ordered, or something that takes a week or two to get. Placing it on the pile, I don't think once it's on site, I don't think it would take more than a day.
Yeah, Joy Cossey. I mean, like 10 mil poly is what I would recommend, and it is readily available. Contractors are using it all the time for covering contaminated stockpiles at waste stockpile areas, stuff like that. So it's something that is readily available. It may take a couple days for them just to get it into their hands, but it's not like something that takes weeks upon weeks to
So Jamie Frederick in the line, maybe the end of next week, July 18th. And also we can get the plan for the phasing, the time frame from the initial layering and the paving for voters' request.
I think that's John Schmitz, I think that's a reasonable time frame.
So here's a question for the commission. If the the silt fence and the covering has been completed and we get a response, do you want everyone to attend? Do you want somebody to show up at the next meeting to go over that response with you? I'm just saying this will be the third meeting in a row that we would have this item scheduled. At least the third meeting in a row to have this item scheduled.
This is Commissioner Gordon. I'm so I think the reporting out of the sediment and erosion control is something that can, we can read, or Jamie, as staff, you can provide us an update. I think that's fine. I think then, but the sharing out of the plan for the laying out of the new substrate, I think that should be done by BL and Mr. Schmidt. Or whoever they send. I mean,
And we would.
That's not up to me to decide.
Right, it comes down. It's kind of a means and method. So we would look for the contractor to provide their sequence of. We don't tell them what to do or how to do it. We just
tell them what to do.
Plans.
This is Commissioner Boda. Who tells them what to do and ensures that they're following plans? Because this is where, and I think we even have as a condition of our approval, I can't be sure, but I feel like it's in our general, our standard conditions of approval, that the work is done under the oversight of a licensed engineer. So, am I wrong?
I'm not aware of, I don't know where that language is. I mean, the plans are designed by licensed engineers, but we don't have full-time construction inspection. We're not out there inspecting the site on a daily basis, making sure, how things are. I mean, most sites, there's no full-time inspections on construction sites.
Jamie, Frederick, and Wetlands. I think that there's certain parts of the plan that call out for the engineering firm to oversee, and that can be specific to certain projects. And I think it calls out for situations in which case the engineering firm should be consulted. Essentially, if the contractor is looking to change out something from the plans that use an alternative dewatering method or something like that, then they're supposed to consult the engineer.
Because this is Commissioner Wood, because this is the kind of thing that happens. We have a lovely plan, and then we end up back here because on site the work is not done according to the plan. So, I mean, maybe that will be in this next component of the plan for the laying out is oversight by engineering to ensure that there is alignment between what is done in the field and what is planned for. Because then I'm weary of these kind of interactions. And that's not on you. I just have been doing this a long time, and I'm tired of these kind of things where there's a very clear plan. It is in black and white or blue and white or whatever color they printed it out in, and we're here with things that are not. You can't call them a mistake. Yeah, I don't know if it's an intentional oversight or better to say sorry than may I. Like I can't ascribe motivation to anybody, but I am tired of it. So you get extra hours, or somebody in your firm does.
All right, so I'll send a follow-up email to Frederick and Wetlands on regards to the fact that the silt fence should be modified for the plans and the pile covered with 10 mil poly by June 18th, and request. Sorry, July. June will be a long time away. And plan / sequence for the initial layering of the pavement versus the actual pavement cap be provided for review at the next meeting. And then, so are we continuing the show cause hearing to the July 24th meeting?
That seems to be what's precipitated out of tonight's discussion. Any other comments, questions from the commission?
This is Commissioner Bagman. On the site inspection report from the 2nd of July, number 8, I just have a question. Number 8, the washout areas, is BMP installed? It says yes and no. Both boxes are checked off. And then is BMP maintenance required? It says no. Anybody know why that is the way that is? I mean,
Hey, as John Schmitz, it's probably just a typo if both of the boxes are checked. There's a washout area that's been there for a few weeks now. But I'd have to just look at the report. I'm sure it's just a typo if both boxes are checked. We had somebody out there this morning, or so there should be another report being generated today that will get distributed probably tomorrow.
okay, thanks.
I think that concludes the discussion on item 3. On item B. See you next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, season correct 240902 170 182 Leeds Island Road, clearing and earth disturbance without a permit. Is 2 items: continuation of the show cause hearing and review of the jurisdictional ruling request. And who do we have for the applicant?
Jamie.
Mr. Onofrio. Okay. Jamie, can you provide what information you've received since the last meeting on this season corrected?
Jamie Frederick, and Wetland agent. So this week I've received some revised materials from the property owner. I think it addresses a lot of the things that were raised in my previous correspondence. So I think that the commission should go through it and see if you feel you have sufficient information to move forward. So we do have 2 items here. We've got continuation of the show cause hearing and review of jurisdictional ruling request. The commission essentially decided to kind of table the show cause hearing and the decision regarding the cease and correct order until the jurisdictional ruling was reviewed. So that way, any activities that were deemed as of right would be kind of excluded from the cease and correct order. Of course, there'll probably be a little bit of commingling of the 2, which is why they're both together on the agenda, as far as discussion and review goes. So, I don't know if you want me to give any more of an overview or if you want me to hand it over to the applicant and I can screen share the latest packet that we've received in regards to the jurisdictional ruling information. I think the main things we've got is we have more detail in regarding the jurisdictional ruling request, and then at the last meeting we didn't terribly dive into it, but we had a report from the soil scientists in regards to recommendations for restoring the area of the wetland where stone was placed. So I think those are kind of the 2 main things to focus on this evening.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Gopowski. If we talk about the jurisdiction at this stage of the game, then the cease and correct becomes a moot point, or no?
Not necessarily. It depends. Jamie Frederick and the Melanesia. It depends on what the commission finds in regards to the jurisdictional ruling request. So the commission may determine that all activities are as of right, some activities are as of right, or no activities are as of right. So you're not beholden to a particular box.
So can you guys hear me? Gene Sipperly, can you hear me? I don't know if my volume is up.
Yeah, can you turn your volume up?
Okay. Or I could speak louder. Hold on. Let me.
Either one works.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. All right. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So I'm the soil scientist that performed the wetland delineation that you have before you. To answer Mr. Klukowski's question is you can say that his activities will be part of a jurisdictional ruling that's a permitted use as of right. However, he inadvertently did place some crushed stone beyond my wetland flags into the wetland. And I'm recommending, and Mr. Onofrio has agreed, to pull back that stone with an excavator under my watch to make sure that all the stone that was inadvertently placed in the wetland to be removed. It's about, on the map that he has, it's about maybe anywhere between 5 and 10 feet. And once he removes the stone, what we're planning to do is rake that material nice and flat and add topsoil or organic material that will be able to sustain a soil seed mix that is a wetland mix to restore that wetland area. Also, there's a couple of areas where he disturbed some soil in the upland area. And what we can do is we can do a conservation mix to restore that as well. So regardless of what you find with the jurisdictional ruling, which I hope you'll agree with us is as a permitted use, he still has to go in there and remove that gravel, the crushed stone within the wetland area. And again, the time of year right now is not going to be conducive to this, because if he goes in right now and disturbs that soil, he can't plant any seed mixes because it's just too wet. I mean, too dry. It's not going to propagate and germinate. So what I don't want invasive species to colonize in there between when he removes the crushed stone and when he plants the seed mix. So we're going to have to recommend a time in the late, maybe early fall, late summer, according to conditions. And I talked to Jamie about her and I determining when the best time for that activity to be done. And once that is done, we can monitor that minor restoration for 2 or 3 years to make sure that things have been established and nothing dies.
Mr. Separately, this Commissioner wrote it. You said adding topsoil. Can you speak more specifically to the type of soil that you mean, and how would you ensure that you're putting appropriately matched organic matter, etc. And is it necessary? I mean, it's still filled. So I guess I'm wondering why you would add soil.
And that's good. This is Rick over the owner of the property. If I could just add to that point, I understand what you're saying exactly. There's a little bit of stone. It's in that yellow section there, delineated on that map there. And that all corresponds to the original drawing. I did hand draw some other things in that Jamie was looking for. That was the easiest way for me to do it and get it done. However, it's a small amount of area. We're doing that. I'm looking at that as, if that's what it's going to take to appease everyone. But again, it's right on the border there. There's the stone there. I don't think it would even, to me, it doesn't make sense to take out stone for an area. It's not causing anything detrimental. There's no waterway there. There's nothing to that degree. And then have it, you're basically disturbing it worse than anything else. There was already some base stone in there anyhow, because that used to be the old, years ago, that was the drainage way until the storm drains got dumped in there and repaved the path to the front parcel. But yeah, I agree as far as that goes. As far as the fill would go, you would do a fill material, organic fill material, but you don't want to put topsoil for more than about organic material more than about 3 inches, 2 inches, because it would be too much for everything to take root in. So you would, if you were going to take out the 4 inches or whatever of the clean stone that was kind of inadvertently spread on those little edges, then the idea is to put something back to keep the elevation correctly and everything else. So that's basically what it comes down to.
To clarify, Commissioner Bada, when you establish the seed mix, whether it be a wetland seed mix or the conservation seed mix, there has to be some kind of organic material that is fluffy enough to establish a germination. We're gonna excavate the crushed stone away, and again, I recommend this. Maybe my client is thinking that it's going to be too much of an expense, but my recommendation is for him to scrape off the crushed stone that was placed between my flags in the wetland area. Okay, put in a fluffy organic material. It could be topsoil. It could be some kind of other mucky material that he can get from off site, but it has to be such that the seed mix will germinate, and it's going to have to be done during a time where there's going to be some rainfall that's going to be consistent in order to in cool weather, because a lot of these wetland seed mixes have natural grasses and wildflowers that germinate in cool weather. Grasses are a cool weather crop. You can't plant them now, but you can plant them certainly in the fall. So that's the recommendation that's in my report dated June 26th.
This is Commissioner Goplowski. What is the current depth of the crushed stone that is in the area that we're talking about?
It varies from like an inch to maybe like 3 or 4 inches.
You can see the trees. You can see the bulb of the roots of the trees. I mean, Jamie could attest to these pictures. It's not heavily filled. It's I mean, you could see parts of the trees around it on the base where a lot of the times that should be covered in a perfect world anyhow.
My question is the organic material, whether it be a mixture of topsoil or peat moss or something that'll help the germination.
Yeah. I mean, my guess, and I'm not.
My question is, I'm concerned about going in with an excavator into the wetlands
for a small amount of area too, and that's what I mean. So
my question is, could this be done by putting in? Commissioner Boda can probably answer this question for me too. Could the soil be put on top of the current conditions? If it's we're not talking you put a good base of dirt down on top of the crushed stone.
That was my thoughts. Exactly, 100%, because that's a natural drainage path that was originally there during years ago, and that since has changed. That's why I stopped there in the first place. I wasn't even looking at any maps or doing anything like that. That was the old line, and that's where the conduit goes underneath the driveways parallel this.
Okay. In the wetland agent. That'd be putting Bill on top of Bill. I don't think that would align with anything we've seen or approved in the past for a restoration plan. And it looks like the wetland scientist, professional on the matter, wants to speak to this, so I would like to hear from him.
Okay. Yes, exactly.
Yes. So so right now there's crushed stone that is a base. You put organic material on top of the crushed stone, and then there's no way that the seed roots are going to go through that stone material. That has to be removed. It has to be removed in that little strip of land. Has to be. There's no way that you're going to do a restoration that's going to be effective unless you do that. And I think someone said about, well, putting a piece of equipment in the wetlands. No, there's not going to be any equipment in the wetlands. He can bring his small excavator right up to my flag line and reach out about 10 feet, probably the max that he has. Well, no, that small backhoe.
Yeah.
I'm using the
my father's friends that he's got, but it's not his. But whatever. Yep.
Anyway, this is Commissioner Basserman. We have an expert opinion who has got a plan to resolve the issue of the stone in the wetland. Everybody else is not an expert. This commission needs to rely on expert testimony where it exists.
We're just talking. I thought we were just talking, aren't we?
No, we're not just talking.
Oh, we're not?
You're talking between yourself and your own soil scientist.
So
No, that's not the conversation, actually.
Let's back up.
I didn't think I was on trial here. You know what I mean?
Rick, you're not on trial. Let's back up just a little bit. Okay? In order to do a successful restoration, number one, there has to be the crushed stone removed from the wetland area. Number two, there's going to be enough hydrology there, which when I say hydrology, there's going to be enough wetness in the soil that's going to facilitate the germination of the seed mix. But there has to be some type of layer, and I'm going to call it a fluff layer, either be topsoil or pucky meat, or maybe even some wood chips combination type of thing that's going to establish the medium to grow seed. And it has to be done in a time when there's going to be some rainfall that's going to keep, he's not going to go out there and water it with a sprinkler, obviously, because there's no source of water. But that's what we're recommending. That's what I'm recommending. And Rick, I know what you're saying and what you want to do, but
listen, I already agreed to if this was going to end this, it would be fine. I'm not arguing with anybody. Well, everyone here on the commission asks a million questions about things they're not experts in. It's a question. It's a dialogue. It was brought up by someone else, and all I was doing was contributing to the conversation, to the dialogue. That was it. So I'm not rejecting anything, and I appreciate your help and your insight on it. That's not. We're taking clean stone out that's underneath that travel point anyhow, and we're going to put fill back in. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, but okay, let's continue.
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. I think what your soil scientist is trying to represent is that you're not putting fill back in it for the point of changing the grade, or basically
Right, okay.
Because that stone has been there, the soil is compacted, so the seeds aren't going to be able to push through and germinate.
Right.
So you bring in just enough material so that those seeds can germinate is the intent of bringing in material. Is that fair to say, Mr. Zipperly?
Exactly, Jamie. Exactly. Yep. And this thing probably could have been resolved a long time ago because he was kind of under an enforcement action. And, I don't know if everybody knows this, but I'm the environmental planner for the city of Middletown. I've been here for 28 years. I also am the wetland agent for the town of Portland, and I sit on the wetland commission in my hometown of Basra. So I've seen it all and done it all and heard it all. Jamie, as the enforcement officer, has the ability, without the commission's review, to order him to restore this. But as a courtesy to the commission, she got you guys involved. And this thing has been kind of progressing for quite a while. So we're at a point now where I really feel that, you guys can make some kind of decision regarding the jurisdictional ruling and the agriculture use that he wants to do forward. But again, as I spoke to, Mr. Kulkowski, the chairman, the commission member, there still has to be some restoration done, without a doubt. So that's where we are.
This is Commissioner Boda. Thank you for clarifying. I just want to circle way back to several minutes ago. I had asked about the type of soil or topsoil or organic material. And you said that the purpose of that was to add some fluff. The second part of the question that I had was really about sourcing that material, and how you might determine what type of medium you would use, instead of that rock, and also to just ensure that it does not bring with it seed bank, including invasive material.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I've seen it a million times where you buy some cheap topsoil from a landscaping company, and they manufacture that topsoil, and they bring in all kinds of organic material, including autumn olive and Japanese knotweed, and you think you're getting clear soil, and all of a sudden you get these crazy flowers coming up, and it's Japanese knotweed everywhere. We did that in Middletown along some sidewalks. We will source it out to a local landscaping company that we can ensure that it's going to be topsoil that is not going to be fabricated. It's going to be from a farm. It's going to be and we'll
I never used it right on the site, right?
we'll have them certify it. We'll have them certify it. Yeah.
Couldn't I just take some from other parts of the site? It's not going to be. We're not excavating in the basement, right? So if that's the thing, we keep it.
Well,
Native.
you know what, Rick, you're right. There is some.
And there's piles that were here before I even bought the thing. So, I mean, there's dirt there.
Well, there's other areas on the site that have not been disturbed that have a thick layer of soil within the woodline. So you possibly could do that. Yes, that's an option. Yes.
Well, this is Commissioner Boda. I think that goes back to a part of the question, which was, I do have, I understand the chairman's comment earlier, but I do have some expertise in a number of the areas that we deal with. And so I'm wondering about how you are planning to factor in the type, the medium, and how it may match the existing wetland, in terms of organic versus silt versus sand. These are not the same, and it's never ideal to put fill in a wetland that goes contrary to our regulations. The idea is to remove the fill. I understand what you said about needing to add some fluff in order for the seeds to, or the plants to germinate. But I'm just wondering about the composition of the material that you're considering putting in, and how that might impact the wetland and its traditional function.
Oh, you said a lot of things about impact. So to determine the amount of fill or the type of fill, it would have to be a textural. It would have to be a textural match. Okay, like you mentioned, sand, clay. Well, I don't think you said clay, but you said sand and some
silt and organic matter. Yeah.
So we will match it based on the organic content of the material and the texture. That's clear. It's going to be like I would say a loamy organic mix, if you will. The other thing that you mentioned was putting fill in a wetland. This isn't fill, okay? This is material that is going to enhance a restoration project that's required to move this application forward. And again, it will be all witnessed by me as a soil scientist. We'll ensure, the area of. But Rick or Onofrio, he had a great idea. Way up in the back there, there's no disturbed soil, and I have just assumed, and I'll have to verify it, but it's going to probably be a pretty topsoil layer. Normally, these Connecticut soils where you are, 0 to 6 inches is like a topsoil, and it's probably a fine sandy loam. with organic material because of the breakdown of leaves and grasses and stuff over time to do a soil profile. So we can look at that first, and if that doesn't work, we can source it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you can finish your thought.
Oh no, you said you have experience in this, and I was just wondering, as a like, what is your experience? I'm just curious. Like you said, you have experience with this type of thing. I don't know what.
So, my CV is long, but I was certified in wetland delineation and classification several years ago. It was an NRCS program. I teach chemistry, AP environmental science. It goes on for a while, but my background is in science, and I teach a lot of these subjects. So.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agency. I definitely understand Commissioner Boda's concern about the composition of the material and making sure that it's appropriate for a wetland area. And it is also possible, perhaps, that you could use some of the material on site and amend it so that you're not necessarily having to bring in the full volume of material. And of course, you're going to need less material to establish your seedbed than most likely the stone that you're bringing out, because the stone varies in depth. And you don't need that depth of soil to establish vegetation. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. It won't end up being 1 for 1. You just need a layer.
Right.
So.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It's absolutely spot on. Yeah.
We ready to move into the as of right discussion?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland. I'll just give a quick kind of highlight of where we've been, where I think we've gotten to, and then let the property owner go and follow up with anything that he wants to follow up with. So the site plan that you're seeing shows the wetland delineation that was delineated by George Logan, the wetland delineation that was delineated by James Sipperly, and then the blue area is the kind of the area where the gravel has been placed that the owner is looking to maintain as their access for the site for their silviculture and bee harvest hive. I'll let him get more into that. And then at the last meeting, we kind of highlighted that we were looking for this area to be labeled, which has now been labeled, areas outside wetlands, but some still mixed in between trees, essentially not meant to be driving paths. And then the updated materials I received, the property owner indicated he wanted to start with 2 beehives, and he may grow the number of hives based on need and how the bees are flourishing. And then he's also provided some more information regarding the native pollinating flowers that he wants to do in this area here. So I don't think I want to put the cart before the horse. I think maybe unless the commission has any immediate questions, we can hear from Mr. Onofrio, and or if the commission thinks it would be helpful, I can pull up kind of the questions and responses he provided, and we can go through it that way.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Is that a change, Jamie? You mentioned 2 beehives, and if I recall, I thought the discussion last time was 6 arranged in a circle.
So the owner has submitted 2 narratives regarding the hives. He submitted one earlier this week, and then I provided some comments suggesting the commission might want essentially the information shown on the site plan. So he submitted this revised plan showing the beehives, and he indicated he wanted to start with 6, or he start with 2. So it sounds like he wants to start with 2, realizing he might grow to 6. Is that fair to say, Mr. Onofrio?
Yes, I think it was actually a typo because it started the sentence. I know what you're talking about where I referred that initially, and I think it was a typo because it said second phase, so it should have had a sentence before it. It must have got deleted out, but it was to start with two, and then if necessary, because in my research on and this whole harvesting of honey, basically what could happen is the bees could swarm and they could kind of take over a hive and there's a lot of components to maintaining the hive. So depending on how that aspect of it works, then that would need to either build up from it. You could add layers, or just completely get a separate hive with a separate queen, and so that's the thought of that. I mean, they're 19 and a half by 9.5 frame dimensions. I put all the dimensions in there, all the documentation, visuals in there with that. And then my question and answer, I think, probably is going to cover 90% of the stuff that you guys are probably come up with. I try to anticipate as much as I could. Anything else, I'd be happy to answer.
2 hives to start, additional hives to be hives added if bee population requires it. About 20 inches by 10 inches. Paths to hives will walk 25 feet from the area outside of the wetlands to the beehive. Soon path will form from naturally from frequent walking to and from the inspect hives. Hives are freestanding, so no foundation. And then for planting pollen,
This is Commissioner Boyd. I just had a question. In looking at the schematic that is in this document, I mean, I just only got a chance to look at it today after work, so I did it further down. There was like a piece by piece that this. And then the bottom one, so this lowest structure, shallow and deep frame and foundation. So that to me sounds like it's
In the ground.
in the ground. Is that versus freestanding? So I'm just I'm curious if it is on the ground, in the ground, both, and then I also was just wondering. I don't know a tremendous amount or very much about beehives, but I did think that they needed to be level, and so wetlands are not known for being level, and so I was wondering what if that is true that beehives need to be level, and if that is the case, how that would be accounted for. I'm sure you don't want to set up a hive just to have it fail.
Right. From my understanding, and it's detailed in there, there's foundation ones and foundationless, frameless. But with that said, none of them suggested that they were curved into the earth. It was just a difference in the design. Some beekeepers would like it because it keeps out other. I don't know exact wording, but it's in there. If you scroll back down to the two types, it's basically a design function of the frame and the structure itself. It doesn't have anything to do with the, like a sub mount system or anything. As far as the levelness, I would agree that I would put it somewhat level, and it's all in the area in the center where it's actually built up, and I put that detail in the question and answer as well, from the sediment that kind of it heaped over. So that it's not a wet, swishy area. I mean, none of this is really that bad. Anything that's for any duration of time that is soaked in your traditional area of a wetland or a sensitive area like a lot of areas are. You have the waterway, which is channeled now from the storm drains and from the neighboring drainage path, and you have some outskirts on the sides that hold water, and that's kind of really it. Yeah, there's definitely a squishy part in the center there. It's approximately 65 feet from the waterway, the trenched out waterway from the front to the original drainage pathway where just past that is where our delineation is at this point anyhow. So what I'm trying to say is there's material there. It's easy enough to, to move that around. If I have to put my hand, it's not going to be an excavation or it's not going to be anything of significance to level that out. Even if I had to put a brick underneath it, whatever, a block, piece of wood, whatever. But I don't see that being anything worth of any impact. That's my professional opinion.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So, I guess one question that might help frame this for everyone is, are you planning on putting the hive like on like a wood stand or something so that you do have that option of leveling it out a little bit and also keeping the hives a little bit higher off of the wetland?
Yeah, usually the base it accommodates for that. It's just a base piece, or there's a million different types of hives. I went with the one that I went with is one of the more common ones in the north here. But I mean, there's you can get commercial grade boxes that are they're a little more slammed together or whatever, and they're on pallets, So I don't know anything about adjustable legs on the beehives. I think it would need to sit just firmly flat, and they're weighted as they are. So as far as that goes, it'd be good. But they'd be in an area where it's not going to get direct water. It's not going to get flooded on. So it's a pretty good area for that as far as that goes.
So for the record, James Ciprelli. So regardless if he puts a brick or a flat piece of wood on top of the wetland to maintain the beehives, that is all part of the permitted use as of right in a wetland as far as your regulations go. The section 4.3, I think it is, it gives him the ability to do that under a permitted use as a right for farming. I mean, if you're going to put a 3x3 slab of stone or slab of wood to support these beehives, that's not a regulated activity. That is permitted use as of right under the farming jurisdiction. Just to be clear, so
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So I mean, it's up to the commission to determine their jurisdiction. But yes, there are statutory requirements in what is considered as of right. So I can pull up the regulations so the commission can see it fresh and clear. Gee, guess what I was looking at earlier today. The section pertinent to tonight's discussion is 4.1a. The following operations and uses shall be permitted in inland wetlands and watercourses as of right per Connecticut General Statute 22A 40A. The agency shall make the determination as to whether a proposed activity meets the definition that it is as of right or is a regulated activity. A. Grazing, farming, nurseries, gardening, and harvesting of crops and creation of farm ponds of 3 acres or less essential to the farming operation and activities conducted by or under the authority of deed for the purposes of wetland or watercourse restoration or enhancement or mosquito control. The purposes of this subdivision shall not be construed to include road construction or the erection of buildings not directly related to the farming operation, relocation of wetlands or watercourses with continual flow, filling or reclamation of wetlands, filling or reclamation of watercourses with continual flow, clear cutting of timber except for the expansion of agricultural cropland, or the mining of topsoil, peat, sand, gravel, or similar material from wetlands or watercourses for the purposes of sale. So I think there's a balance for the commission to consider. A is beehives, grazing, farming, nurseries, gardening, harvesting of crops. Is it something that is exempt? And then B, are the activities all related to that use? I mean, I think if he was looking to pour a 10 by 10 pad for his beehive, then you have an argument potentially for filling the wetlands because you really need a 10 by 10 pad for your beehive. But that's not what he's proposing. So I think that there's a consideration there for the commission. Um,
and I agree with Jamie's take on that. And if you look at grazing farming, if you look at the definition of farming under the Connecticut agricultural law, it includes growing of trees, which is silviculture. It is a whole about 3 paragraphs of what is farming. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that, honey and farming, not honey, but, bees and stuff is part of that farming definition. I haven't read it in a long time. It's pretty significant. It includes everything.
it is very expensive.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so
This is Commissioner Goplowski. I don't think Mr. Onofrio has had any malice towards the wetlands in any way, shape, or form. I understand that he wants to use his property. He wants to get some maple syrup out of the trees and start the beehives. You start with one or two beehives, and then you go from there. I don't see there's an issue of his intentions. I really don't think he had any malice in anything that he has done up to this point. I can see his frustration level, not knowing which way to bob and weave and do this and do that, because this is, I'm still learning, and but as far as his intentions for using this as a farmland and changing the jurisdiction, I think we should move forward with that, and then we're gonna have to monitor what he does with the wetlands, removing that stone. I think that's an important issue. So I'm not sure where we go with this, but I don't think he's had any ill intentions. I don't think any other commissioners think he has any ill intentions.
Thank you.
yeah.
All right, this is Commissioner Basson. I guess I have a question. If we start with 2, if successful, how might that grow? And how many more beehives would be put in the wetland?
Yeah, I don't. From what I've researched, it's a lot of work, especially getting them started. But I don't think the area would be large enough to have a large scale operation by any means. It will. I mean, I could. They're small units, but you need space. You need space in between each one of them because when the bees go out, from what I understand, is they get confused, and that's why they suggest putting them in a circle and spaced properly. So there's only so much space there as it is, right? So you could spread them out across that area, but you're not going to be able to occupy a dense section of the area all at once. So you'd have to spread them out in that area, and it's a perfect area too because you have some water, so you have water for them. The plants will be growing adjacent to them, so they don't have to go so far to get their pollinators. And then they all come back. So I couldn't see it really. I mean, 75, 80 pounds, I think you get off of one of these kits, one of these setups, and then you could add vertically. So you don't necessarily have to, if they're flourishing, you could just add another layer to it going vertical. So you actually could get probably when you think you need another one, you probably just keep continuing up a couple layers. So I have no intention or anticipation of exceeding maybe 4 or 5. I said 6 in a circle initially, but with all that comes more work too, so they're gonna just see how it goes.
Commissioner Bassman, I'm sure all of the commission members know that in Connecticut and New England in general, there's a huge decline of honeybees.
Yep.
Nobody knows exactly why, but
Right.
what I'm saying is we'll monitor this as we go forward, but he should be able to sustain as many beehives as he's able to that ensures a healthy hive for the whole area. Yeah.
This
And that would be true certainly if wetlands were involved. My concern here is that beehives are in the wetlands. And I guess the question is if we were to say that this is as of right, is it an as of right for bees only? Is there a open-ended to what this property in the wetlands can be used for in the as of right?
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. So to clarify, the commission's reviewing the activities outlined in the materials submitted for consideration of as of right. If for clarification for commissioners and the property owner, if you wanted to do anything else that would need to come before as like say he wants to grow a pepper farm, you would have to come back and say, here's where I want to put my pepper field.
Right.
And then we would go through this process again. And hopefully it'd be a little bit easier for everyone because we've all been through it before. So it only pertains to the information that's in the materials that was submitted.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Bergman. I understand about the beehives, the 2 beehives, and then the pollinator field area. What is going to be around the beehives, and how will that herbaceous, whatever's going to grow around the beehives, what is that going to be, and how will that be managed? Will it be managed like a meadow, the way some wetland areas are managed?
Yeah, so it'll be like you said, basically just a blanket meadow kind of thing, as that goes. And then as Jamie and I spoke about it, like I'm not gonna put any stone pathway or I'm just gonna walk through it, and I'm sure it's gonna make some sort of pathway, an area around where I'm inspecting it, because you have to do it quite often in the beginning. And again, all that stuff in that vicinity of the actual hives. The good thing is that we can get a jump on some of that with some all native plants would be nice. That's obviously the intent that's being proposed. So I'm going to try to stagger those. I wrote in there, stagger the bloom cycles. So I have a whole list of various plants and native flowers that are particularly good for honeybees, and you get them so they bloom. Three different times a year they'll bloom. So you're maximizing that potential there.
Yeah, Commissioner Bergman, I guess my question is, in the picture, you have the honeybees and you have the pollinators, and each one is a box. That's about half of that area. So.
So you're right. Okay. So to the left or down below, and then to the left of beehives in that corner there, that's wet and it's wooded. I mean, a lot of this is still there. I mean, there were some invasive species that were cut out, but that's all got ground cover as it is right now. I mean, to be honest on it. And in these corners and the beehive, underneath the beehive text there, and then a little bit to the bottom right, I guess maybe as well, there's a low area, and it's wet and it's vegetated. It was never touched. And so there's not going to be any activity over there just because it's not. You can't really see it in that picture. It's on the opposite side. It would be, but on the opposite side of so in that front straight ahead of it, in the center of the picture, in that back area, all that vegetation there, it goes right to the street. That's all out of commission, because what are you going to do there? It's wet. It's
Jamie Frederick and wetland agent. When I've been on the site with the property owner and James Sipperly, we kind of went over the pollinator topic a bit and the fact that there is a lot of species that rely on pollination already in that area. So it's not necessarily that he needs to plant a bunch of pollinators in that area. And that would be something I would really encourage the property owner to consider in relation to this area here. So in his narrative, he outlines that all work would be done by hand. And I think it's kind of, I would recommend, particularly if the commission determines this as of right, that the property owner consider kind of the extent of what needs to be infilled with what you've already got, because what you've already got, it's going to degrade because it's there naturally. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to buy the plant material. You don't have to make sure it establishes. So I think really understanding what you have before you start going in and modifying it, like you said, you might have some invasive species, especially as things start to pop back from what was taken out. So maybe managing those invasives and planting the pollinators in the place of those would be a good idea. So I would just really encourage you to understand what you're doing before you go in and do this. And they say, like, the first year you have a property, just kind of watch and see what it does, what comes in, what blooms when. And I think that that's really important for you to consider in the process.
And Mr. Bassman, didn't Jamie, you have some questions that you still needed answers to regarding the pollinators and what was going to be the approach to that area?
Yeah, so I think this came in earlier today. So I think that this is an improvement of an explanation over what we had previously. I would like for the commissioners to review it and see if you have any questions. And like I said, I would, if the commission determines this is as of right means the commission doesn't have jurisdiction. So you don't condition it. You say it's as of right, and the property owner has the right to do it. So that's why I said if the commission determines this is as of right, I would encourage the property owner to do his research, because it's to his benefit, it's to the bees' benefit, and it's to the environment's benefit. So
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Onofrio. There's a big push within the state to encourage people for beekeeping, and my understanding, I know a little bit, not like enough to be dangerous, a little bit about this. Are you working with a mentor? Because I think that there's a program for mentoring for this type of thing.
I was just reading up on that as well, and there were some links that were broken on it. But I recently, 4 months ago, signed with the Connecticut Farm Bureau. So I was already getting into that because they have a lot of resources and information for doing that. It's a whole community. More you get into it and you see, and it's almost like breeding dogs or horses, because you have queens and you have to get all, it's a whole process. So, thank you for that information too.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Papantonis again. I would encourage you, if you are really taking this on, to work with the resources that are out there for this, because it's not easy, and there's a lot to it, and we need more people to keep bees.
Yeah.
So.
So to clarify something for me, and I'm not speaking as a soil scientist here, I'm speaking as a wetland agent and an environmental planner. Jamie said a statement just earlier that if you guys consider this a permitted use as of right, it's all done. He can do what he wants. No, that's not quite correct, because there is still a section with the permitted use as of right that she mentioned earlier. It's going to kind of combine. There's still an enforcement action. So you can approve the permitted use as of right and let him do the farming stuff, but you can also stipulate that he removes the crushed stone from the wetland area and remediate that area as described in my report, which I think obviously you should do.
Jamie,
So go ahead.
Jamie Carter can well agent. Just to clarify, yes, that's not what I was getting at. So, like I said before, there's multiple activities involved here, and the commission needs to decide which activities are as of right and which ones are not as of right.
Okay,
So the commission can determine that that stone within the wetland should be removed, and I think that is a likely thing to consider because it hasn't been demonstrated how it's a road essential to the farming operation. So what I was getting at essentially is if you say the beehives are as of right, you can't then condition the beehives.
Okay, thank you for the
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Originally, I just need a little bit more clarification. Originally, when Mr. Nelfield came to us, it was maple trees. That he wanted to harvest the maple syrup out of the trees that are currently in the area. Then came the beehives. Are we 86ing the maple project and just working with the beehives, or is it going to be a combination of both? Because we need to know that if we are going to make a decision as of right. Because as of right came with originally no mention of beehives, just the harvest of the maple syrup.
Right. Yeah, I'm at 100% still doing. That would be more of the primary in my mind, especially as far as getting started off quickly with it. 100% with the maple syrup. The whole land is all that white is maple trees. So yes.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. And my assumption, based that you're not proposing a sugar shack, is that you're planning on taking the staff elsewhere to process it.
collected only.
Yeah.
So this is Commissioner Boda. I mean, I think that unless there's additional information, I'm at the point where I would say that the two beehives as proposed, as well as the supportive planting of native pollinators would be considered an as of right. However, the stone, of course, is not, and that's been removed. Additionally, the highs as they are described in this plan. So, just to be placed in location, no additional alterations for a walking path or anything like that, which would be additional fill. That's just the two highs that have been outlined in this plan, as well as those native plantings, would be an as of right.
So Jamie Frederick.
I'd be happy to make a motion, but I'm just putting that out there so that we can, if there's not additional information, we can move forward.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I would just like for clarification. I guess two things. One, as far as the stone, do you specifically mean the stone within the wetland as delineated by James Sipperly? Or do you mean all of the stone on the site?
No, what was stipulated by Mr. Sipperly, he was very...
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I was asking Boda because she was not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the stone, is there additional stone that was placed?
Yeah, so Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, if you look at the plan, which I think I am screen sharing, this blue area shows kind of where stone generally has been placed, along with the hatched areas and the green area. So the recommendation in Sipperly's report is to remove essentially the area that's green. With kind of the understanding that the internal driveways are in relation to the harvesting of the sap from the maple trees,
and also access to the property in general. So those are not in wetland areas; they're in upland areas.
I was referring to the stone that was in the delineated wetland area.
Yes.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to be clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other comment I'm just going to throw out there, it hasn't been a sticking point. I just want to make sure that that is in fact the case. There was some removal of vegetation, diseased trees, dead trees, and undergrowth, which we think was probably largely invasive, particularly based on some of the material that's left behind as far as their street lines and what have you. So there hasn't been any request for additional information there, so I'm assuming that that's wrapped up and lumped in perhaps with the internal circulation path in regards to kind of prepping the site for the sap harvesting.
Yes.
Are there any concerns about that vegetation removal that are outstanding for commissioners? And as far as anything in the wetland, in my mind, the property owner's already indicated he wants to put in pollinators, and I just mentioned earlier this evening that if any invasives do pop up in those areas that were recently disturbed, they'd be fantastic spots for those pollinator plants to be substituted in. So with that in mind, are there any outstanding concerns in regards to the vegetation removal?
Just one clarification. I don't think this was ever put on the record, but we will continue to monitor any colonization of invasive species that may come in here and eradicate that, and we will report that back to the commission for at least probably, I would say, 2 years. I don't expect it, but in case it happens, you never know, and I just wanted to put that on the record that we will monitor it and we'll report back.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. So, like we started off this conversation, there's two components. We've got the jurisdictional ruling request and the show cause. So things that are determined to be as of right would be determined in the jurisdictional, would be handled through the jurisdictional ruling request, and anything the commission determines not to be as of right, such as the stone placed within the delineated wetland, would then be carried through the cease and correct process.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would say let's first hash out the details of what's as of right, and then we'll move through with the requirements for solving the cease and correct order for anything not determined as of right. Does that make sense to the commissioners?
So,
Yeah, I have a question. This is Commissioner Papantonis again, because we're talking about 2 hives now, but up to 6. So if we are we going to be limiting, or are we able to limit?
I don't think we really can, and I mean I think the Jamie Frederick and I think the property owner explained, kind of his process and why he would be expanding hives if he chooses to. And I think he's identified the fact that there are considerations.
This Commissioner Papantonis, I just don't want to make him come back before us if he wants to add.
No, I think it's open ended.
Okay,
would be my interpretation.
So to get back to the record, Commissioner Botta already made a determination. I don't know if she actually made an official motion, but she.
I did not.
No. Yeah, but you.
I wanted to see where folks were to see if we could go ahead with the motion.
Okay, thank you.
I've expressed the things that I wanted to bring up.
I have no further questions.
What is the silence?
Oh, was I called on?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So I've got a lot of experience at this point in the stage of the game with applications and enforcement actions. Nobody really wants to maybe go for
No, Mr.
I think we're good.
I think we're fine.
I'll back up. Thank you.
Yeah, we're fine. I think some of the silence that you hear is, yeah, some of the silence is just leaving airtime in case people want to speak. I know not everybody is comfortable with the long pause, but we want to make sure before any motions are made that if there are commissioners that want to add something, but they're waiting for that pause,
respect that. Thank you. I'm a little out of line there. I apologize.
No problem. No problem. Butterfly, Commissioner Boda.
Okay, I will make a motion that this 170 through 182 Leeds Island Road request for a review of judicial ruling based on an as of right activity that the activities proposed by Mr. Onofrio, the property owner, that the beehives, as described on their meeting on July 10th, 2025, as well as the submitted material, as well as the plantings of native pollinator plants, that request as put forward falls under section 4.1, permitted use as of right, as it is recognized as a farming activity. And the activities related to farming.
This is Commissioner Gokowski. Do we have to add the harvesting of the maple syrup from the trees that is currently on the property?
So somebody needs to second the motion first, please.
Commissioner Papantonis, I'll second.
So that would be you're making a friendly amendment, but that the harvesting of the maple, is that also in the wetland area?
It's on the property in that described area.
That's not the same. Is that in the wetland area?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. I don't know that he was.
Yeah,
I don't think that it was doing one or the other. I think just on site.
That wasn't part of this proposal, so I'm gonna that was a different conversation. We haven't been discussing that as part of this determination. So my motion is specifically and narrowly regarding the hives proposed, as well as the native pollinator plantings that support the beehives.
This is Commissioner Bassman. There was a second on that?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantonis, I seconded.
And
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. Does it also pertain to the gravel place outside of the wetland?
That was not my motion. I right now my motion is just about those two components.
This Commissioner Papantonis, as I understand it, the gravel is really because of the maple trees, so I guess it's going to have to be a separate motion.
We can do it as a separate motion, but I would prefer to get this piece done. So maybe we can have a vote on that, since there's a motion and a second.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Any friendly amendments to that seconded motion? Okay, I'm going to take a vote. Commissioner Gokowski.
Commissioner Gokowski, aye.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis.
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Bassman, aye. All right, now I guess the issue that was raised is the gravel to get not only to the beehives and the pollinators, but to the maple trees. A good chunk of that is in the upland review area, is it not?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So yeah, I think the main components left are the gravel in the upland review area outside of the wetland, and then also the harvesting of the sap. So we didn't really spend a lot of time talking about the sap. It does say maple syrup shall be harvested throughout the site as the trees consist of predominantly maple trees. Um, I mean, harvesting the sap is specifically called for in the definition of
Yeah, so this is Commissioner Boda. The harvesting of the sap was fine. I was not clear that that was in the wetland area and therefore needed to be included in the as of right ruling. Can someone clarify if that harvesting is also intended in the wetland area?
If there's a maple tree, it's a miscellaneous one because mostly a lot of stuff in there was dead. So if there was a tree in the wetland area, it's literally one or two. So no, I mean my intention was, and the bulk of it is everywhere you see, that white area, basically on the predominantly outside of the wetlands in the white area, that's trees. That's the maple syrup production. There may be a couple in the front wetland area, but I actually didn't even really. I didn't check on it specifically.
So I
You
can
no intention to harvest those in the wetland area if there's only a couple of them, I assume.
so I can clarify that, commissioners. Um, when I was talking to George Logan about things in the past, there are some sugar maples in the upland portion of the site, quite a bit. But if there's any maples that are in the wetland area, sugar maples don't like their feet wet. Those will be red maples that do not produce. They don't produce the maple the sugar. They are just red maples. So he's not going to be tapping red maples to get sugar. He's going to be.
You could.
Okay.
Well,
So we can move on from that.
Yep.
This is
okay.
Commissioner Basserman. Isn't the gravelled, if you will, pathways necessary to farm the sugar maples?
Well, I mean, it's part of it. I mean, part of it, was just access around the site, and then the other part is, to access the area, and then the idea of the sugar maples and everything else came up. That was the natural path that was there, basically, and the path of dead and broken trees or old paths that were there. That was kind of the natural configuration of everything. But yeah, to get around to the site, to maintain trees and collect the set. Yeah, I mean, definitely need that for that as well. Absolutely. I don't know how that pertains to exemption if it's not in the wetlands, but I didn't think that was even a factor.
Jamie Frederick and wetland agent. So the commission does have a 100-foot upland review area. So if you wanted to put a road adjacent to the wetland, that's still something the commission generally would review. However, if it's as of right, then it's exempt from regulation.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm doing for that 100-foot area. I thought we already established that it wasn't that we did kind of review that area, and two of the soil scientists determined that there was no impact on the wetlands with what was there, and definitely not anything on the waterway. So I thought we already crossed that path. I didn't know.
So this is Commissioner Boda. Do we need to? I don't feel like there is a need or compelled to let that go as a non-regulated use. I mean, it's there, and now we're talking about mitigation for removing the stone. I don't know. That seems like it to me. Maybe I'm missing something.
That's how you want to move forward? Fine.
Mr. Onofrio, I will also just mention, you've got your plan, but NRCS has funding for small and local farms, and homeowners like yourself. They would not provide you any funding with work because there's work happening in the wetland on your property. So just something to think about. Like, there's grant funding and all that sort of stuff. They like to support those local farm, but the beehives being where they are, I don't know that you would qualify for funding. So
That's very interesting. Good information to know.
So I'm going to follow up on that statement, Mr. Commissioner Abada. I have been a longstanding member of the Connecticut Resource Conservation and Development Council, Connecticut RC&D. There used to be two of us, one on the eastern part of the state, one on the western part of the state. Because of lack of funding, we joined together. We work extremely closely with NRCS. We have an agricultural person on staff. And that regarding the wetland statement, you can't get farming money because it's in a wetland. I can tell you right now that we have our staff person, Amanda Johnson. She's our ag expert, and there's a lot of agricultural grants and activities that actually do take place in wetlands and floodplains in Connecticut. So that can remain to be seen if he wishes to pursue that funding through NRCS and through RC&D, and I can be a resource for that type of avenue if he so chooses.
yeah, this is Commissioner Bowe. I mean, I think that Connecticut and several other governmental organizations are always looking to support small farms, family farms, local farms, and there is certainly funding opportunities. I having had recent discussions, this was the little fun fact that came my way, and so I thought that it would be helpful to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Come back to the stone in the blue areas as identified on the site plan. Does that require a separate as of right determination or not?
I think Jamie Frederick and Ellen, I think if you made the determination, you've reviewed the plan, and you're identifying the one thing that you have a problem with and want to be restored, I think it kind of addresses everything. So I think if you wanted to move forward with addressing the stone in the wetland, which it sounded like the commission wanted to do earlier, and perhaps, so generally speaking, the commission keeps the cease and correct order in place until the work is done. So we've already talked about the fact that the work is not ideal to do it now based on the season. It might be better to do in the fall. And then we've also talked a little bit, or the soil scientist has talked a bit about monitoring. He mentioned 2 years. A lot of times the commission looks for 3 to 5 years of monitoring on a cease and correct order, particularly when activities in the wetland. Or sometimes it'll be 5 years to be reduced to 3 if the first 3 years are successful in what we were looking for. So I guess at this point, given the fact the commission has a plan that that could be used, generally speaking, what the commission would do at this point would be to upload and modify the order to codify that plan, any monitoring that's required, and an expected timeline for when that activity will occur on the ground. So I guess that would be for the work to occur prior to the end of the year. And then for monitoring to occur, 2026 through whenever. And for the work to be done in accordance with the release plan dated June 26th with any modifications the commission thinks may be needed, particularly if you wanted to clarify or add additional context to the organic topsoil that we were discussing earlier.
Commissioner Bassman, did I also remember Mr. Tripoli indicating that the removal of the stone would be done under his supervision?
Yeah, it says in his report, this work will be overseen by me on site when the work will be completed.
This is Commissioner Bassman. So Jamie, do we have the elements to extend the cease and correct, or are you looking for something now more formal as a motion or something?
So I guess there's two ways of doing this. You could let the cease and correct order sit as it currently is, as cease and correct order remains in effect until such time that the commission makes a decision. So you could wait until the plant or the removal has occurred to uphold, or I would say currently, like, we're at a phase where the commission would uphold and modify, outline what's required, and then I would bring it back once the terms have been met, or for whatever reason, the terms are not being met.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I would be a proponent of uphold and modify, and to just get some, that paragraph that's up at the just above below the top where you were about the soil. To just put some additional clarification based on the conversation that we had, ensuring that it's that where the soil is coming from. You had mentioned certified to not contain invasives, and a matching of the existing soil type, on-site soil type.
And as an alternative to not possibly using some organic material in topsoil that may be located on the property outside the upland review area. I would think, right? I mean, we discussed that as well. So
if it's a match, I mean, I think right now, we're just clarifying the language, the language in here, and
okay.
I mean, part of it was just about ensuring that soil type is a match.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And then I think also the thing,
Commissioner Boda, that would be regardless of where that source comes from then.
Correct.
As long as it matches
those are two different criteria, essentially. One is the soil type matching, and the other is to ensure that it is not, if it's sourced off-site, that the sourcing material is ensured to not contain invasives and other such things.
Thank you.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, I think the other thing to clarify is when this needs to be done by and how long you want monitoring and what the goals of the monitoring are.
So, as I said earlier, I think, Jamie, you and I are going to have to agree as to what the conditions will be in late summer. Well, I'm not even going to say late summer. I'm going to say early fall to get the go-ahead for him to do this work. So that's kind of open-ended right now. And like you stated earlier, the cease and correct will maintain its course. There's no deadline until such time he satisfies that. So that's going to be an open-ended question as far as like when he's going to do that work, and we're going to have to agree when would be the best time based on the weather.
Jamie Frederick and Wetland Agent. So yeah, my recommendation would be either prior to the end of the year or prior to December 1st or November 1st. I don't know how tight you want to make it. I mean, basically just to line up the intent that this happens this year and that we're not sitting with that condition longer than need be.
Okay, that I understand. That's fine. That's a perfect condition. Yes.
not to say that if we say December 1st, you could necessarily do the work November 30th, but just kind of as a point of, so that's why I don't know how close we want to try and parse things. And then as far as monitoring, like I said before, usually the commission requires 3 years. Things you look at are at least 85% survival of what's being planted and management of invasive species.
Mhm. This is Commissioner Boda. That sounds good. So maybe we would get an update in the late fall.
Jamie, Frederick, and Wetland, does the commission want me to bring an update once the seeding, or storm removal and seeding has occurred?
Sure.
Okay, so just for clarity, this would have to be a motion to move the process.
Oh, because we're upholding and modifying. I didn't write them all down.
You want me to read back?
Did Commissioner Bigham write them down? She did such a good job last week. Where's she at?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Begman, I can try this. Let me just get the number. Okay, so make a motion that we uphold and modify cease and correct 240902 170 182 East Island Road. Regarding the stone removal in the wetlands in accordance with the letter from James Sipperley of 6/26/25 and the conversation tonight during our meeting, specifically regarding the organic matter that's going to be used once the stone is removed, that it either if the on-site soil is used, it needs to be matched to the wetland soil, and if it's sourced off-site, that soil has to be without invasives, and it also has to be matched to the soil type. And that the timing of this activity should be done once there's enough moisture with the weather conditions. That's likely going to be early fall and should be completed by December 1st. And then we will have a 3-year monitoring period, reports yearly, looking for 85% survival rate and management of the invasives. And we will expect an update in late fall after the stone removal and seeding.
Period.
Commissioner Boda, I'll second it. Nice of them.
Any further discussion?
No.
All right, Commissioner Gopowski,
Commissioner Gopowski, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Beckman,
Commissioner Begman, aye.
Commissioner Basserman.
Great. So I will send a letter to the effect of that out to the property owner. And Mr. Helper, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. I wish I say I missed you, but once we get up and running, we'll bring you guys over and get some honey or syrup or something. But thank you very much.
Good luck with it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we have on the update. Oh,
There's something else? I thought that was it.
I got it. We have no other business, but we have an application for receipt. Inland Wetland 250701, 125 Timberline Road, the repair of a sump pump system with a new outlet. Jamie, this came in relatively late.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So I started getting application materials last week prior to our kind of cutoff deadline, and I got full materials this week. I do think it would be beneficial. I know we're getting late. If we can just take a quick look at this to give the property owner some guidance. Essentially, I received a call concerned about some digging potentially in a wetland. So I went out and I talked with, or I left my card with somebody on site, and the property owner contacted me the next day to discuss things. We met on site, and activity that was started has been backfilled and silt fence installed. And now an application is before the commission. Essentially, there's an existing sump pump system in the basement that the property owner was, my understanding, and please correct me or clarify if I'm misrepresenting anything, but there was an existing system. It was failing in some places. She's looking to shore it up / replace it as needed and revise the outlet location of where the sump pump discharges. So it is kind of a unique site. The wetland in question is maintained as lawn. I'm going to screen share an aerial image real quick. So this is the property, albeit the property has been subdivided, so the property lines aren't accurate, but there's a duplex structure, inland wetland pocket, like I said, mostly maintained as lawn, a berm area here, where you can kind of see the grass looks a little bit different, and then tidal wetland. And this is the parking for the trolley trail over in Stony Creek. So essentially, as I understand, the sump pump discharge kind of to the north to the shared property line between 125 and 117. And now they were looking to outlet it down to this water course in the hope that it could be gravity fed. But of course that goes through the inland wetland and through the tidal wetland, and has some issues with it. So they're looking to revise their plan and discharge it out the rear. No, of course it's not the same one. So this is from the subdivision map. This is the house, and this is kind of an illustration of where they're proposing to have the sump pump discharge outlet relative to the wetland line. So questions for the commission, applications for receipt. Can't make any determinations this evening, given that the activity has already started. I know the property owner is interested in knowing whether or not this is something that can be reviewed administratively. And then I guess the other question is, if you don't feel it can be reviewed administratively, do you feel that you have the scope of information that you would be looking for reviewing the application, or is there additional information you would want to see at the next meeting? We do also have a brief project narrative, and I understand the property owner and the contractor are present on the call this evening.
Jamie, Commissioner Gopowski here. Has the property owner been cooperative with you when you pointed out the situation to them?
Yes. Yes, she has.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Boda. Is there a reason why we would not do it administratively?
It's discharging pretty close to the wetland, but I think given the fact that it's a sump pump, and it's, replacing an existing system, and I think the nature of where the outlet was before, and that it was discharging onto the neighboring property, and the restrictions and kind of the options of where it can discharge. But that's part of why I wanted to redo it tonight. Just make sure
This Commissioner Gopowski, I don't have a problem with Jamie reviewing this administratively, and if there's an issue, I'm sure she'll bring it back to the commission.
Anyone feel differently?
No, this is Commissioner Boda. This is just it's groundwater.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I will be in touch with the property owner, and I won't take up any more of anyone's time this evening with it. Since the property owner attended, yeah, no, we're good. Because they have any questions for the commission, but
The long wait to hear you're all set. Talk to Jamie.
Thank you.
I'm sure she's happy nonetheless.
All right, we have no agent approvals, nothing on correspondence and announcements.
I do have an announcement.
Okay.
It's short, so.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Oh, and it's also Jamie's birthday.
You're opening that door, Jamie. You know, you're.
Commissioner,
Happy
well, I have to
birthday
announce
to you.
wait, I
Happy
have an actual announcement, please. Commissioner Myason has resigned, so we're down another commissioner. And also, just as a heads up, the town has put out a notice, essentially kind of just letting general public know that we're on the lookout for commissioners. So if you know anyone and or, just so you know, hopefully we'll get some responses and get some more people available so there's a little bit less pressure on our current 6 members to make sure that we have 4 members present.
Okay, now we have to sing happy birthday.
Wait a minute, before we get into the revelry here, Jamie, did you indicate that there was going to be a job description for a commissioner position?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent, if you're interested in checking it out, it's on the town Facebook page. It's been posted to the town Facebook page.
So if anybody that's interested has at least a reference of the expectation.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, now
Can we say happy birthday to Jamie?
I think just saying,
during the meeting.
Yeah, I think just saying happy birthday works. Singing does not come out.
Okay, happy birthday,
Jamie.
Happy birthday,
Thank you, everyone. And
Sorry, David.
Bill Klasky's birthday was last Saturday, so happy
Birthday to you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good evening, everyone.
Night all. See you in a couple weeks.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.